All right, welcome everybody to another episode of the Big Doug and Carmen Show, you one-stop shop for all things Commanders. It is a Victory Monday. They turned up the heat in the desert. Our guest today from the Ringer is Joe House. Joe, you and I have done so many of these misery Mondays. This feels incredible.
I had to pinch myself to believe it, Big Dog. It's great to be here with you and Georgie on this beautiful Monday. And we have to look backwards to the history of this team to come up with comparatives because it's been so long. You know, the last time we started 3-1 was 2011. We won't talk about how that season ended, but we did have, we're looking back through the decades to see a team that scores, 35 or more points every single week, that has all of this efficiency on offense. It's a wonderful thing. We're just knocking on wood and pitching ourselves to keep it going, fellas.
I asked my Twitter feed, I said, when on earth is the last time the Commanders, Washington football team, Redskins put up a 40 burger? Sounds like you got to go back to 2020 against the JMU quarterback-led Cowboys that eventually led to Chase Young's victory and defensive rookie of the year because of all the sacks they got. I heard you have to go all the way back to 2016 before you get a year where they put up 30 twice in a row. This can't be us. This can't be us.
Except that for it is, and it is a reminder. We saw it last year with Houston. If you can really start from scratch and genuinely put in place a rebuild with smart decision makers, with folks with an established track record, people in personnel decisions who have some insight into some team building. Now, the expectations for this team were modest, properly modest. The forecasted win total was 6.5. I was bullish on the idea of 7 wins. But really, this is a testament to starting fresh, starting anew, and having at every level of the organization, folks making decisions that are positive and in the direction of building a tradition of winning. I mean, this story that came out about, Harris being persuaded, Dan Quinn telling him, we need to go right from Cincinnati to Arizona so that we can just get in place and be prepared for this week. It's a short work week. And, everybody knows, typically in these kind of instances, a team coming off of Monday Night Football, especially a big win like that with a rookie quarterback, those tend to be situations where the team that's traveling doesn't perform as well. But this team is like, hey, we're going to give it our best effort to be competitive. And they flew right overnight from Cincinnati. And then, the team for the whole organization to be there in Arizona for the week and prepare properly. It's awesome. It's just awesome to see, gents.
The guy who will remain nameless would have never done that.
Never.
Ever.
Never.
George, let's run through a couple of these stats from yesterday.
Sure.
26 for 30 for Jaden Daniels, 233 yards, a touchdown and a pick. You have to love that when he threw the first pick, he was still smiling and it didn't cost him nothing. Good. It's very nice when picks don't cost you nothing. Secretly, the defense played fairly well last year.
Absolutely.
Yesterday. Brian Robinson, 21 carries for 101 yards and a touchdown. 68 yards for McNichols in those 2 touchdowns. And listen, McNichols is running at 8.5 yards a pop. Brian Robinson's running at almost 5 yards a pop. They pretty much spread the ball all over the place. 6 receptions for Zacchaeus, 7 for McLaurin, 3 for Noah Brown, 3 for Ertz, 1 for McCaffrey. That snag by McCaffrey, I was watching the condensed version of the game earlier. Like, he doesn't snag that. The safety's behind him. That might have been a bad deal. He's only played the position for 2 years. He's 23 years old. Like, I'm kind of excited about it, to be honest with you. So it
Mhm.
was a big day for the offense. Man, it's been a big day for the offense for a couple of weeks now. George, is it sustainable? We talk to people all offense that spent all of our time telling us
Mhm.
how bad Cliff would be. Some of those guys are watching this and they know they owe us an apology, George.
Absolutely, 100%. Yeah, so all offseason long, we had some NFL media guys talking about how Cliff Kingsbury is predictable, is very conservative, doesn't have movement for Terry McLaurin. I don't care right now, right? We're getting 38 points last week, 42 points this week, averaging 40 points per game. We only punted once over the last 3 games. Trust Ways has to ice his hand holding the ball so much on field goal kick. They're doing awesome or extra points. I'm really happy with that. I think our offense is sustainable. I think Jaden Daniels is that special type of player. Like, it's kind of hard. Being in DC, we've been humble for so long. We're afraid to get excited, but I'm excited about Jaden Daniels. I think he has that capability. He has that force multiplier to kind of bring the team and elevate the team altogether. So I'm excited about him. The defense, that was the biggest surprise to me yesterday. I was pumped by that. Like, walking into the game, I'm like, it's going to be a shootout. It's going to be a third. I predicted 31-27 was my predicted score. It's going to be a shootout in regard to that. But I didn't expect complete dominance, which is fantastic. But it's a great starting point, right? If you can like learn while you win, that's how you become a great team. And if we figure out how to shut down Kyler Murray, I'm not saying we can do it with Lamar Jackson. It's going to be a similar game plan in regard to corralling him and breaking him down. So we'll see how it goes. I hope the defense can step it up a little bit, but I'm confident in our offense moving forward.
House, the Commanders almost hit the over by themselves yesterday.
They tried. I mean, it was a 50-point total, and everybody anticipated what George just laid out, which was kind of a shootout mode. But the defense is a work in progress. It's still going to be in the bottom tier of most metrics, and in terms of a team rebuilding kind of situation, we have guys from all over the place here. It was great to see Dorrance Armstrong finally get a little bit. Now, he got a good grade last week from PFF, but it was good to see him get, tally some of the tackle and sack stats in there. And, the pressure is the thing that will translate. Now, I do think that Cliff Kingsbury had a perspective, might have shared it with the defense. I mean, here's how we're going to try and attempt to bottle up Kyler. But it was still kind of stunning to see, because we've seen Kyler run all over everybody, and that has been a weak point, especially with this defense so far. We're getting pressure. We're getting nice pressure on the quarterback, but it's not translating into sacks, and we've seen quarterbacks be able to escape and elude that pressure. Not so much yesterday. 4 sacks yesterday on Kyler Murray. Yeah, let's take that to the bank, gents.
Absolutely.
One run for 3 yards for Kyler Murray. Sign me up for that any day. And we were talking about Jaden. Like, it feels like everybody has a quarterback that when we get him in the pocket, they squirt out. I mean, how many times has Hurts or Dak done that to us in a big spot? It feels like Jaden's one of those guys. Remember, he almost had that sack, then all of a sudden gets out of there, gives a little pitch to Ertz. Like that. When I say we got one of those guys, the passing's great. Obviously, not turning the ball over one time on the year is fantastic. But having one of those guys where it looks like, oh, damn, and then you go, oh, yeah, we got him. The other thing that surprised me yesterday, 5 receptions for Marvin Harrison for 45 yards and a touchdown. I mean, the blueprint was out there. Every one receiver throughout the history of this season has gone bananas on this team. George, dare I say Emmanuel Forbes was the difference?
I don't know about all that yet, so we'll kind of take our pause on that. But I'm happy with the collective unit kind of shutting Marvin Harrison down, right? He came out, he had that opening first drive, and that's where that track meet was supposedly going to happen, right? They just marched down the field, Marvin Harrison scored on the first drive. We're like, oh, here we go. Those are those MGM bets that we're seeing about the over-under 100 yards and a touchdown for Marvin Harrison. But then basically we slowed him down. I think he had 54 yards total in the game, about 30-40 in the first half, only about 20 yards in the second half. So whatever they did, they schemed it up appropriately. The big thing that was eye-opening to me, I know you watched all 22, Doug. I haven't got around to it yet, but just listening to talk radio, doing some research. They rolled out, I don't know if you guys caught this, the starting 3 corners walking onto the field was Benjamin St-Juste in the slot, it was Emmanuel Forbes on the outside, but it was also Percy Butler on the outside as well. I was sorry, Sanders Still, not Forbes. So Sanders Still, St-Juste, and Butler on the outside, which I find pretty interesting because Butler's an athlete. He's big and tall and he can run fast. So typically a safety out there. So whatever they did, they're trying everything, which I appreciate. And that's what you have to do. If nothing is working, try things out, tinker with it so early in the season, and learn as you win. That's all I'm really trying to emphasize here. I love it.
Number one, Igbenogany, I think I got close to saying that right, was also out there flying around and had a good game. I know they're excited about him. It's interesting. This is the second group that's tried to get St-Juste into the slot. I never thought he could play there. I thought maybe he was better with that boundary, give him a little bit of extra help. Sanders Stills, I actually think they're having a harder time figuring out what to do with Sanders Stills right now. He didn't start as explosively as I think. I think they thought he was going to be a lockdown nickel from the time he stepped on the field. I mean, that's what guys like Saban were saying is the best pound-for-pound player in the draft. He's having a little bit of a hard time getting it going. Joe, I wonder if that's just because the staff doesn't know what to do with the pieces yet.
I think that's exactly right. To me, it feels like a chemistry experiment more than anything. And we made the observation about all the places that the folks came from, and we have this nice blend of vets, who are still capable. We love to see Bobby Wagner out there still like as the anchor, as the known leader, the voice. Great game from Frankie Louvu yesterday.
He was everywhere.
Everywhere. Jeremy Chin still doing his thing. Getting nice grades week to week. But yeah, what's the role of these younger guys? What's the role of these rookies, and how is it going to come together? There's still, I see out there some, scratching of the chin when it comes to the interior defensive line. Like, with Jonathan Allen and Deron Payne get it going a little bit, there was some, because we're capable of stopping the run. The Cardinals ran all over us a little bit. I mean, let's be honest.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. But that's supposed to be the anchor of the defense, and that still feels like there's some room for improvement there. But I think it's just the chemistry experiment element of it, fellas.
18 rushes for 104 yards, 5.8 yards a carry for a touchdown. They got everything they wanted to in the run game. And it is one of the things I noticed most about rewatching the game this morning is that the defensive tackles that we've put a lot of resources into, particularly the two first rounders, looked lost out there. I don't know if they're, again, if the chemistry experiment hadn't just gotten right yet, George, or if it's a new philosophy they've yet to figure out. Dare I say, because I don't know, maybe they're not putting in the film study. It didn't look like they knew which holes and gaps to fill. And maybe, again, we're not in the room. Maybe those were the right ones and they were expecting secondary help or a linebacker to come down. But those two particularly did not look good. Phidarian Mathis, I think, is officially in a bust. He's not played well at all. I like the explosion. Spend your day watching 95 track down ball carriers.
I saw that. I know exactly what player you're talking about.
Got wheels. He
does.
Me. I will continue to say I can't imagine that Allen's on this team after the trade deadline. George, I don't understand what the problem is with the D tackles.
I think they're just trying to tinker and figure things out, right? I think that's what's happening here. We have to give them a little bit of grace. It's hard because they've been the faces of our franchise. They're the ones that are getting paid $20 million. They're the ones being, promoted on all the ticket sales and promoted all the posters around the city when you're driving around. So you want to see bigger plays. You want to see some more contribution. But we do have to consider that brand new defense of, 2/3 of the team got replaced, a new defensive scheme. We'll see. Hopefully it'll get a little bit better. There have been some flashes. Week 1, there's a lot of pressure on Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield was playing out of his mind, and he was,
he's one of them guys.
He's a competitor dodging. Yeah, he was a Houdini week 1, right? So we saw that. We saw them shut down Kyler Murray. I mean, the one thing I do want to give credit to is that they've seemed to blitz, or at least pass rush, in unison this week. And when they got upfield, they kind of corralled him, and there wasn't any big open holes. I think John Allen ended with a sack. Deron Payne got a half a sack. So we got to give them some credit there. Maybe there's some upward trajectory. We also talked about how they're kind of moving things around on our last show about how, like, They had, I think it was Ron Payne on the end, or we had Newton on the end. They're
Yeah,
moving
they've
defensive
moved him
tackles.
outside some.
They're playing around with things and tinkering with things, and I appreciate that. If it's not working, try something out and play around with it. So hopefully they'll land on the right spot, and the goal is to be hot more so in November, December than right now. To be honest with you guys, that's what we're looking for.
They're rolling, House. I mean, there's no way around it. The fact they've punted like once in several games now, and I've liked, and to me, it's been the whole deal, right? Like, I think Quinn has called really good games as well from his spot. The only mistake that I think he made this week, Cardinals are driving. It's that it's what ends up becoming that second touchdown that they run in.
Mhm.
You could tell that the defense was gassed. They had they had nothing left. Nobody was even lined up. I think there would have been a nice time to call a timeout. Let those guys get rested. They were already up 10, so the timeout shouldn't have affected you later. But I like Quinn as a head coach. I thought he's been really good so far, House.
Oh, I totally agree. I mean, he's helped quite a bit by having the potential for a generational quarterback. It's amazing how good these head coaches look. You know, CJ Stroud, what CJ Stroud did for D'Amico last season. But you know, the focus is the defense, and part of the thing is we're talking this through. We just need to remind ourselves September is the new preseason, right? They don't play preseason football anymore. Real football at real speed is happening in real games now because of the length of the schedule and the way that this whole thing works out. So not that surprising that we're, sort of seeing some personnel, experiments and so forth. But the one thing that we wanted with Dan Quinn was institutional stability, respect, and identity in a locker room. That's all coming through. The guys, every week we keep hearing more and more about how inside that building they love each other, George.
Yeah, exactly. Doug, let me jump in on this real quick.
Yeah.
So for one, how good was it, gentlemen, to watch Sunday Night Football? We're going to watch Monday Night Football tonight, halftime show. NFL headline of the week, Jaden Daniels putting his face up there with his completion percentage. We're actually starting to we're being highlighted for positive things for the first time in a couple of years.
That makes me nervous, George.
It does. So we have like Stockholm syndrome, PTSD from all the things that happened before, but it's football related. It's about a star player. It feels pretty good. So that's step one, right? The other thing I wanted to kind of tie back to your question, Doug, about Dan Quinn and his leadership. So for one, he empowers his staff, which we all talk about a good thing. Like he hires a good staff and he lets them coach. But in regard to aggressiveness, in regard to time management, I think he's doing a pretty good job. If you guys remember, I think the Cardinals drove down the field. We were up by 7 right before the half. There's like 35 seconds left. We marched down the field and got a field goal, right? And it was like an effective play caller. It was like, we're going to shoot. We're going to throw to the end, the boundaries. We're going to get out of bounds. We're not going to do it all in one shot. Eric Bieniemy would have thrown 3 Hail Marys and took a sack. That's what Eric Bieniemy would have done. And Ron Rivera would have nailed the ball and went into halftime content being up by 7. Instead, we were smart. We drove down the field. We were effective, got into field goal range, and we nailed it. And I'm happy with that because you have to be aggressive in this league. Like, I don't want to get too off track, but the Cowboys we saw the Cowboys and Giants. I felt Dable was way too conservative. The Giants were marching down the field, and the Cowboys scored 1 touchdown and won the game. You have to seize victory in the NFL, and I'm glad we're doing that.
Well, to your point, let me just interject real quick. It is, that inside the game management that is a revelation. Like the last 2 minutes of the first half into the first possession of the second half, that's where this football team won the game yesterday.
Exactly right.
Stopped. It was all 3 phases of the football team. They stopped the Cardinals on a 4th and 1. 35 seconds, we get a field goal out of it. So there's special teams. You come right back after the halftime and go march down the field and score a touchdown. Game over. And that 100%. Is that demonstrates, a fundamental understanding of where those advantages are, how you create separation inside of a game. And when's the last time we saw that with this team?
Well, and a kicker that you feel comfortable in.
Right.
I know, right? How crazy is that?
How
ironic is that?
Yeah. My nails off when he's kicking that field goal. I actually felt pretty confident about it. Like, so I was going to go out there and crush this thing. The other thing, Joe, and you kind of mentioned it, they got the ball several times within their own 20. This team's got no problem marching the ball down the field. Obviously, you can do that when your running backs are getting like 7 yards a carry after contact. I mean, it's insane. You know, the offensive line's got to love being out there thumping people. And they're using that 13 personnel that we had talked about before the season started, George. Sinnott not having like a big season as far as catching passes. I'm not even sure he's caught one yet. And he has given up a couple of penalties. But on the touchdowns, generally he's out there busting his ass blocking. That's what they've got going right now. You know, I mean, like the Trent Scott touchdown. They are being. I told this somebody earlier, maybe it was Derek Clausen, that was talking about them not scoring points. It was like this team has lived in the red zone since the very first game of the year. They just weren't turning them in. They weren't paying them off for touchdowns. Now this team's paying them off for touchdowns. You're starting to see what they expect it to look like. It feels really fun. Good house.
Well, and some of it for sure. Let's continue to give Coach Cliff his flowers, his deserved flowers. And there was some celebration of him, redemption game against Arizona, whatever. That's mostly media narrative, but I do think it was satisfying for him. But scheme wise, right? How about we get the guy who is our pass pro running back? Let's just get him out and get him 70 yards. I'm sure everybody had McNichol penciled in for, where you're doing your fantasy props or whatever. Oh yeah, let's just put Jeremy in for put him down for a couple tutties and 70 yards out there. And the same thing for the big O. I mean, Zacchaeus, our second leading receiver.
Yeah.
Jahan, who? What?
Exactly
Jahan,
right.
Who? They need a receiver down there in Philadelphia. There's a guy that's on the team that we used to be familiar with. Don't see him much on the field, fellas. So I give up, and it is a scheme thing. I think that's really helped this offensive line. It was wonderful to go get some underrated, undernoticed talent in the form of Nick Allegretti and Tyler Biadasz, who I'll always mess up his name.
Just call him a badass.
Call him badass.
There we go. But we have the rookie at left tackle, and he's hanging in there. That was a source of concern for us. So I give credit to Cliff for all of that. To be honest with you,
I agree with you.
And Ben Johnson, the offensive line coach, needs a lot of credit because when he left New York Giants fans that we talked to were like, "Good, get him out of here. He stinks. He sucks." They got all that talent. They couldn't get anything going. Dude, he's got him rocking and rolling down there. If you had told me that they would be rotating left tackles with Cornelius Lucas in a third-round draft pick, I said, "Oh, damn, gonna be a rough year for Jaden."
Yeah.
And they've looked fantastic. And when's the last time you heard a bad thing about the guy over there playing right tackle? Because they sure were mad at him last year.
They were.
Yeah.
And that's a testament to Jaden because he gets rid of the ball so quick. Actually, I'm so impressed by his quick release and his accuracy. He just been so accurate with the ball, not in regard to even throwing the ball, but like placing with the wide receiver, like getting it in the right spot while they're running. It's been so great. Fun.
It's not bad for a college offense, George.
Exactly right.
Zero sacks. Zero sacks.
Wow. Okay.
And one of the biggest numbers I'm looking here, 9 for 12 on third down, 1 for 1 on first down. I mean, if you're going to do that, that's what allows you to march that ball up the field and take that 6 or 7 minute drive. So that if you are a little worried about what the defense may look like, the easiest thing to make the defense look good is let them just sit there on the sideline, getting a blow, as they say.
Did you hear what Deron Payne said? Both of you guys, he was like, they asked him, they were like, what's your favorite part about playing with Jane Daniels? Like, I can actually sit down and have a Gatorade and just sit there and relax and watch a team score a touchdown and then run on the field, which is fantastic. I'm sure this is a pleasant surprise after he's 7-year veteran now on our team. Actually, is kind of relaxing for the first time with the franchise quarterback. It's fantastic.
Yeah, I love to see the conversion rate on third down on an offense because it creates all of the the best defense for this team so far is our offense. And, we are one of only 2 or 3 teams that have perfect conversion rates on fourth down. Now, I'll just knock on wood. We keep that going as long as possible. At some point, we're going to get stopped on fourth down. But to me, the key, 4 for 11, we held the Cardinals. The Cardinals, with all of their ability to convert third downs, 4 for 11. So that shows you that defense is coming in a little bit, big dog.
I have a feeling that Gannon and whatever the OC's name is, I can't think, are catching hell today on how on earth their best receiver got four, I think it's 4 receptions and maybe 6 targets. Like, wow, you got to get that man the ball more. I'll be thankful that they didn't, but somebody's got to be upset in Arizona about the game plan. Fellas, it was so close on my birthday weekend for 2 perfect games. Georgia had me so down on Saturday, then had me so up on Saturday, and then so down on Saturday. Oh man, they were so close. That ball, they got down the 20-yard line. I really thought they were going to win this thing. I know it's not a Georgia podcast, but man, if we could have gone 2 for 2 on the old birthday weekend, man, it doesn't happen very often, and it's not usually the dogs that let me down on my 2-game. What a game they played!
Yeah.
How much better can the Commanders get by the trade deadline? I mean, we're talking about the next couple of games are the Browns. Don't scare me necessarily, particularly if Myles Garrett's not going to play at a high level. You got the Panthers, obviously, and then the Ravens. I mean, George, we always talk about breaking these things up into quarters, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like the first quarter went a whole lot better than anybody could expect, and they've got a real shot at putting the second quarter together nicely. This is an interesting team, and to your point, people are talking about them, and they're worthy of it.
Absolutely. You're exactly right. We talked about breaking up the actual season into quarters. Who would have thought we'd be 3-1 at this point, right? Going into the season, that's why you always have to play the games. You can't always predict before the season starts. People thought the Bengals were going to be dominant. They're going to be right there with the Bills and the Ravens as a potential Super Bowl candidate. They're far from that right now, right? So we maybe had the Bengals as a loss, right? We maybe have the Ravens coming up as a potential loss. We have no idea. The Cardinals are a good team with Kyler Murray.
The Bears round out the 4-game stretch.
Exactly. So there is go back to your original question, going into the trade deadline, the trajectory is going up, right? It's not unrealistic to be 2-2, 3-1, or whatever you want to do going into the trade deadline, which I don't know if you want to go this way, Doug, but I'm curious how it's going to affect the trajectory of our team now, because you and I are both pretty heavy on potentially being sellers at the deadline. But if you're winning, you're not necessarily a seller. So I don't necessarily see us potentially, liquidating, getting rid of assets at the trade deadline, maybe even adding one potentially. We'll see how that goes. I don't know.
Well, I'm curious your thoughts here, House. I've brought this up a couple of times in the last couple of weeks. I can see them being buyers and sellers at the deadline. If there's an offensive weapon that could help your young quarterback be more successful and his growth keep going, I'm in on that. And John Allen is not the reason you're winning or losing football games. If I could get a 3rd-round pick for Jonathan Allen, I think I'd move him and not feel too bad about it. So I think there's a scenario where they can be both buyers and sellers. Not usual, but I could see it here.
See, I like that take. And already, folks are circling some disgruntled folks on offense. I mean, Devontae Adams has trade deadline-itis in his hamstring. I think he's not going to be. You're not going to see a ton of Devontae, I don't think, over these next handful of weeks. That's an interesting kind of a potential addition to this offense. But really, I hope that we're looking at trenches. If anything, I mean, you have to reset the expectation. We missed out on 2 defensive studs right before the season started in Matthew Judon and the guy from Denver who went to Atlanta. Who am I?
Simmons.
Yeah, Justin, right?
Simmons.
Yeah. Yeah. And I sort of saw both those guys land in Atlanta. I was like, man, it would have been nice to got one of those guys.
Exactly.
For the mode that we're in, right? But
yeah.
I think now for sure, anything to bolster that defense would be a welcome addition.
Oddly enough, there are rumors swirling that Pitts may be available in trade by the deadline. Would Pitts interest you?
I think so. I mean, how can you give a proper assessment of that guy in view of what he's experienced with that organization and with the instability on offense. I mean, he didn't have a single catch, and did he even have a single target
No.
on Sunday?
0-0-0.
Right. So, I mean, part of that will be, what's his reputation inside the building?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Does he have? Are there attitude issues? Are there things there below the surface that we aren't seeing? Because Kirk Cousins is a professional quarterback. I mean,
Mhm.
He loves throwing to tight ends, right? I mean, he's had a
Mhm.
couple good ones.
that's exactly right, and he knows how to use them. So something's going on there. I love the talent of the guy, Pitts, but maybe there's something in terms of attitude that's an issue.
Joe, is it too early to start getting excited about thoughts of winning the division?
Well, it is the conversation that I'm hearing. I heard last night, and I'm hearing all day long on this phone. Text after text. People who are telling me, well, I was smart enough to bet on the Washingtons to win the division. A couple of them, I said, well, congratulations, you're ahead of me. I wouldn't make that investment. The reasonable expectation coming into the season was just one more win, couple more wins than last season. I thought, because I wouldn't dare to dream that Jaden is who he's turned out to be. But there is this trend where over the last 20 years, in every NFL season, some team goes from worst to first inside of their own division, and everybody had Cincinnati as that team. 9-win Cincinnati, jumping up with the healthy Joe Burrow as that team in the AFC North. It just could be this team right here in the DMV, fellas. But there's a lot of landscape still to be traversed here.
Couple games left. That's hilarious.
Jaden, real quick, Jaden, I don't know if y'all saw it, but Jaden Daniels is now the #1 selling jersey in the league.
I
That's
love it.
awesome.
You're
There
in
you
the
go.
district house. Are you starting to see more Commanders gear out?
Not only am I seeing it, you're going to start seeing some behind me here. I'm
Yeah.
finally ready to put something. Now, I can't get behind that team name, and I still try my best to never say it out loud. But you'll see the big W. Y'all get a bunch of big W here to celebrate this team and this franchise. It's a new identity, and I don't want to get too invested in this team name because it's definitely going to change. I mean, I don't know if it'll be as quickly as next season, but definitely the next couple of seasons. Let's put the past where it belongs in the past, and let's keep building on the future with all aspects of forward progress here.
I see your Manute Bowl jersey back there. R.I.P. Dikembe Mutombo.
R.I.P.
Mhm,
Dikembe.
mhm.
Yeah,
That
an
was
amazing guy.
One of my favorite players. I never had like a home team. We moved. My dad was in the Navy, so I mean, we were in Virginia long enough to get with the Redskins, but I never did with basketball. So I usually had players that I liked, which a lot of us were like that. Back in the early '90s, Mutombo was always one of those dudes. So feel bad for him and all the things. But George, so how excited do we get here? You still tempering?
It's hard. I'm definitely excited internally. I'm trying to verbalize my thoughts and express myself in a calm potential way. But it looks pretty good, gentlemen. I think there's a lot of upside to think about. You talked about many games left at the end of the year. There's 13 games left, right? Conservatively, right? If the team goes 6-7 to end this season, which would be kind of disappointing at this point, right? 6-7 to finish the year, we would be 9-8 in a potential wild card playoff team at that point, right? So things are looking pretty damn good right now. I think we can go on a little bit of a run. I think the team's offense is looking pretty strong. There's a lot to be excited about. I just want good health moving forward. I want the team to continue to get better and refine some things. But there's something to be happy about because there's just that renewal, that GM. We trust Adam Peters. We trust Jaden Daniels. We like I love what Josh Harris did with the whole paying out of his pocket to allow the players to go to Arizona. He's winning at the edges, as we kind of talked about all offseason, Doug. So it is something. This seems more sustainable. And I think the biggest sign was in years past when the Washington would have a great big win on a Monday night, the next week they'd fall off and have a horrible game and break our hearts immediately, right? So now we're seeing in my opinion, we actually got better, right? The Bengals game was fun, but I thought the Arizona game was more dominant, right? So it's consistency now, so it feels pretty good. I'm happy with it.
And the scheme must be translatable on some level, just because like Eckler goes out, you're assuming, man, that dude's been playing great. They put in McNichols, McWho.
Exactly.
Your point, I mean, 8 teams in 9 years, 2 tutties, the yardage, and that dude was getting up down the sideline.
And to that point, I know we all want to add offensive playmakers, and we should. And the draft got another wide receiver and kind of build up around it. But we had almost, Olamide Zacchaeus and Luke McCaffrey and like Noah Brown and the whole cast-off squad. The Bad News Bears basically running out there on a wide receiver, and they're out there moving down the field, putting up over 400 yards of offense. So maybe the scheme is working right now. So I'm impressed by Cliff Kingsbury so far. Flowers to him. Good game for him.
How's
Nine receivers with a catch, Big Doug.
Yep. And he moves the ball around and is not afraid to just get it to the guy that's open. I appreciate that. How about the slide? I don't know about you guys, but that beautiful slide into second, I literally put my arms up in there and said, look at this beautiful slide. My wife was like, are you really cheering about a slide? Yes. Yes, I am. That thing was pretty.
That's the learning curve, right? Every one of these games left fewer and fewer rushes, right? Let him pick those spots to run. The number one most important thing for this season, and you guys know this, so I just want to say it out loud and knock on wood. Let's all knock on wood. Anything that's nearby, it's just health. It's just as much health, staying as healthy as possible for as long as possible, keeping that health on the offensive line and keeping Jaden, and he's learning. You can see it. Keeping him healthy is the number one prerogative. I will tell you guys, as I look at the schedule going forward, I fear no one. I believe that Washington can beat every team on their schedule. I'm not saying that they're going to, but it is a very surprising kind of position to be in. Baltimore really showed something last night.
Baltimore's the only team that I kind of raised the eyebrows to. I'm not scared of the Cowboys or the Eagles anymore. Defense is nasty. Lamar Jackson's still the reigning MVP. Derrick Henry's the juggernaut reincarnate running up and down the field. So there's a lot to watch. I mean, we'll see, though. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, I am nervous about this upcoming week, though, Big Doug, and I'm interested in your assessment of this. Cleveland scares me a little bit because there's a little bit of that desperation coming in. And, they have – it's a team that has snatched defeat from the jaws of victory a couple times. Cleveland could easily be 3-1, but for dumb mistakes at the dumbest times. They could have, should have, would have beat the Giants. They could have and should have beat the Raiders. And so that, to me, is a scary thing. And I'm especially concerned about the possibility because Stefanski's such a good coach. This might be the week that they put Jameis in. And if that's the case, like, how do you game plan for that? That's the challenge.
They're better off with Jamison, in my opinion.
Exactly right.
I'm
more scared of Jamison than Deshaun Watson, 100%.
All of us. So, I mean.
Watson's done, and I asked around about him too, whether it was the health, the year off. And I had a couple of guys that know ball way better than I do. And kind of like when the league switched to that cover 2, to be able to try to neutralize what they were doing in Kansas City, it was awful for his game, right? He had easy play calls. I mean, think of the guy at Clemson calling those plays. Then he gets to the Texans. It's Bill O'Brien. Say what you want to about Bill O'Brien, but that's kind of like a quarterback type guy. So they were running a good offense for him. The league hadn't switched, so it was easier to diagnose what's going on. And I think personally, it doesn't have anything to do with health. I think the game has moved by him, and he's having a hard time catching up to what they're doing now. Neither one of their running backs scares me. They just lost their all-pro guard for the year. Myles Garrett can barely walk at this point on those 2 bad feet. They've got Amari Cooper that I like, but
solid player, but nothing explosive. Yeah.
I mean,
a couple years ago he was explosive, but he's more solid now, consistent.
I'm certainly was more concerned about Arizona, who had us beating before the season started, and I certainly had more worries and concerns about the Bengals. And this team, you know what it is, House? This team doesn't seem concerned. Like this group in Washington, none of it's too big for any of them. None of them feel like they're concerned about. I think they know they put in a good week's worth of work. They trust the coaches to get them in the right spots. And I don't think they got any fear in their hearts. And I like it.
I love it. Just to add a little color to that comment, Doug, I don't know if you saw the Chris Bryant tweet, and I saw it live, but he also captured it in a little snippet. Jay Daniels had a little scramble on the outside to the boundary to get out of bounds, and basically a Cardinal guy kind of like bucked at him, and Jay Daniels looks at him. He's like, "You're not going to F with me." And actually didn't say F. Actually like, "You're not going to F with me." Kind of shaking his head. He's a primetime player, man. He's played in Death Valley and LSU.
Dude, he smiles
he's not scared. Walking into Monday Night Football against the Bengals was like an average Saturday for him, right? That's awesome having primetime players like that. I love it.
Yeah, well, and to your point, Doug, I think that this team is looking inside. They're not looking outside and saying, "Oh, how are we going to do this again?" They're like, "We're taking care of our work inside this building on these practice fields. We're focused on how we are getting better, how we can develop." And that, to me, I mean, it's what the stories seem to suggest. I mean, I haven't had the good fortune of an invitation to a practice yet, and I haven't sat in the quarterback's room yet, but it does seem like that is, every single thing. They're all on the same script about, trying to get themselves prepared better for each opponent that they're going to face. And they'll have, whatever kind of a game plan and scheme for the upcoming opponent, but they're all, it seems, working on how do I do my job better.
And there aren't, and it doesn't feel like there's egos, right? I mean, we don't hear any of this. I mean, I know they're winning. It makes things easier that way, but it feels like everybody realizes if they get out there, bust ass, do their job, that they'll be rewarded for it. And so far it is. They said Zacchaeus had a great camp. Look at him, 2 games in. Now they're starting to get him the ball more. They're not forcing it to Terry, but they're making sure that Terry's getting the ball more as he should. Well, when he got those 2 feet down, I was like, oh man. That limp body to keep in bounds. That was a great play. But it feels like if you're out there, he'll find you. And you guys know this. It keeps receivers moving. It keeps them moving because they know if I get open, he will get me the ball no matter what my name is on the back of the jersey.
I was going to say it compounds on itself, right? Basically, success breeds more success. So they know that they're winning. They know that they're 3-1. They're confident, right? They see it that the division is kind of shaky, this potential chance to win the division. That means they're going to study harder. They're actually going to take things more seriously. They're not going to like, how many times have we seen week 17, week 16, people start checking out, like not practicing and not coming to camp. They look unprepared walking out to camp walk out to a game. At this point, they're like, we can win any game that we go out there. We should win any game out there. We want to dominate now. And they're not scared of anybody, which I love because that means they're prepared for it, which is really exciting here in DC, finally.
The funny thing is, I don't even know who I would say is the most likely to be the player that's going to have some ego or show some attitude that's out of order with what they're doing. And part of that, it goes to the Adam Peters and Dan Quinn being on the same page right out of the box. Like, we're going to create an identity. This is what Washington football means. We're going to have, and everybody's going to be in line with this and on board with this. And so we're going to go get character guys. We're going to go get Bobby Wagner. We're going to go get Frankie Louver. We're going to go get Austin Eckler, guys who've had some success in other situations. They're culture guys. They're going to come in and instill this culture. And if somebody doesn't seem to be on that same page, Jahan Dotson, then they might find themselves on a different team at the beginning of the season, right? It's a culture thing. And so that for sure goes a long way with the success of this squad, Big Doug.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's a foreign concept, but the good teams is what they do. I mean, to your point, Joe, about the GM and the head coach being in line, you look around the good teams in the league right now, and those 2 guys have synergy. They have a plan. They both see the game the same way. They want to attack the game the same way. And then you can see these other franchises that have a GM that's just making decisions and telling people what to do. That's not how it works anymore. It just doesn't. You can't be successful that way. And to me, the most exciting thing as we get out of here is that the 3 biggest things on your football team, the head coach, the owner, and the GM, all being in line. I mean, the owner's down there on the sideline slapping butts, like, this is what it is, man. This is us. Why not us, as they say. And what a time to be alive, as they say. Joe, thank you, buddy. You're the best, man. We always love this.
Always a pleasure. When you call up Big Doug, I'm saying yes.
Well, we appreciate you. We'll talk to you soon.
All right,
Can't
take
wait.
care, man. See you, man.
Let's go. Hail, boys. Hail.
Hell yeah.